Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of this video series about image 3 from the book The Secret by Byron Preiss. In this video, we will explore the chest of the knight and the right arm. Before we continue, I want to provide some interesting feedback I received from some viewers about part 1. It was pointed out to me that another option for interpreting the horse features on the face of the knight might be Nag's Head. In part 1, I matched it with Corolla, which is known for its wild horses, but Nag's Head is also a great potential match on the Outer Banks. Nag's Head is another city on the Outer Banks, and the word nag is synonymous with horse, so a good fit. Something else someone pointed out to me is that an alternative explanation for the horns on the head of the knight might be the mascot for one of North Carolina's top universities, the Blue Devils, which is the mascot for Duke University. And lastly, I received 2 additional suggestions for the identity of the knight. One was that the knight represented the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, which is referenced in the poem associated with this puzzle. Another idea shared with me is that the knight could be a creative rebus for Manteo, the village where Fort Raleigh and the Elizabethan Gardens are located. The rebus comes from a combination of man, which the knight is, plus T for the shape of the knight he is assuming, and O for the moon in the background, hence Manteo. Thanks everyone for the great feedback. Okay, before we continue our exploration of the image, just a quick reminder of my cheesy rating system to rate the potential matches. A slam dunk means it feels like an excellent fit with the painting and the context. An educated guess is a logical fit but not as confident as a slam dunk. And something rated pure speculation has the lowest confidence. Okay, let's get into the image. This video will start with the chest. Many people believe there's a map in the chest, and while I don't dispute it, I haven't been able to crack it. So if you can piece that together, I would love to hear your theory. Let's start with the cross within the circle on the upper left side of the chest. The most common interpretation I've heard is a feature of the Elizabethan Gardens. As I mentioned in the prior video, the Elizabethan Gardens is a garden next to Fort Raleigh on the island of Roanoke, North Carolina. The area of the mount and wellhead is sometimes depicted on the maps of the gardens as a cross within a circle, as pictured here. I do think it's a very logical guess, but not perfect. This could be an artifact of the way it's sometimes displayed on the maps of the gardens. Another great possibility is that the cross represents an astrolabe. An astrolabe is an instrument formerly used in navigation for calculating latitude. We know that Byron Preiss referenced navigational devices elsewhere, so it's not out of the question that he would think about navigational tools here too. The shape is close to the painting, but not perfect. I think it's also just an educated guess. Next, we will examine the belly or abdomen of the knight. The way this area of the body has been painted is very conspicuous. The highlighting and shading strongly suggest to me that it's a clue of some kind. Probably my favorite explanation is that the shapes that make up this section of the armor are intended to resemble the shapes of the bars on the Watergate. As I mentioned in the previous video, the Watergate is a gate on the beach at the north end of the Elizabethan Gardens. Here's a better view of the gate and its designs. The diamond shapes in the gate resemble the diamond in the center of the abdomen. The bow shape in the painting seems to resemble the bow shapes in the gate. While the resemblance is clearly there, as much as I like this explanation, it's just not close enough to call it anything other than pure speculation. Another idea is that the shading here is in the shape of a halberd, which is a medieval weapon. There happens to have been some halberd-looking weapons on display at the Visitor Center at Fort Raleigh in the past, as you can see in the picture here, so this seems like a distinct possibility. But the shapes are only approximate matches, so this is also pure speculation. Another idea is that the abdomen is in the shape of a crossbow. Here's a picture of a 15th century crossbow, as well as a painting of someone using a crossbow from around the 16th century. What I like about this explanation is that it explains the center lines and bowed curve very nicely. You can imagine the bolt of the crossbow placed where the ridges are. But again, just pure speculation here. Some have observed that the abdomen could represent a baseball diamond. This one is a bit out in left field, literally, but there's a whole solution focusing on a baseball field in the vicinity of Roanoke, so I'm adding this one to the mix for their benefit. I rate this one also as pure speculation. And finally, a last theory is that the belly shading represents another different navigational instrument, a quadrant. A quadrant was an instrument used for taking angular measurements of altitude in astronomy and navigation. There's some resemblance, but again, not a perfect match. So this one too is pure speculation. Moving on, below the belly of the knight is the belt. As you can see, the belt features a garnet, which is the symbolic stone of this particular image in the book. I think the intended match for the belt becomes a lot clearer when you flip it over like this. When you compare the rotated belt to the entrance to the Elizabethan gardens, pictured at right, you can see the clear resemblance. Above the entrance is a sculptural stone coat of arms of Elizabeth I, right where the garnet would be. Extending beyond the entrance on either side is a brick wall that extends around the outskirts of the gardens. Admittedly, it's a bit hard to see in this picture, but if you visit the area, to me, it's pretty obvious. I think this one is a slam dunk. Next, we will look at the fancy decorated outline on the upper right side of the chest of the knight. It's hard to tell in this image, but if you look really, really close, you can see a clover contained within this design. I don't think the clover has any real significance on the puzzle, so I won't dwell on it, but maybe someone out there has a theory behind it. This decorative detail on the knight is a very close match to the hedges in the Elizabethan gardens, in particular the hedges just inside the entrance. It was hard to find an aerial view of this section of the gardens, but you can see from these images the very clear resemblance. This is one of those things that you probably wouldn't know unless you visited the area in person. I'm going to give this one a slam dunk. Going back to the abdomen for a second, it would be impossible to skip over a detail that many consider to be really important, and that is the dent on the right side of the belly. Now, there's actually two dents on the knight, the other one being here on the right arm. So what are those dents and are they clues? My personal view is that the dents are not image matches, but rather a way for Palancar to highlight the animosity that erupted between the early colonists and the native tribes. This is not a knight that hasn't seen battle. This knight is battle tested, and he has the dents to show for it. Aside from artistic references, some have proposed that the dents are dig markers, and others have proposed that the dent in the belly is intended to match to the wound of Jesus on the cross. I'm not sure I buy that idea since there are two dents, but it wouldn't be illogical to bring Christian elements into the painting to highlight the Christian beliefs of the English colonists. Another detail that occasionally comes up is the off-center nature of the knight. You can see here how the center line of the body is askew from the center of the belt. And here I added a line down the center just to make it a little bit more obvious. Clearly it's off-center, but why? The best explanation I can offer is that it's a reference to a very special statue located in the Elizabethan gardens, the statue of Virginia Dare. Virginia Dare was the first European born in the United States, having been born shortly after the colonists arrived at Roanoke. There's much more to this famous statue and Virginia Dare's story, but you can see here that she too is slightly twisted in her orientation. There may very well be nothing to this off-center alignment, and it could just be a minor coincidence. But if there's one statue anywhere in the area of Roanoke for Palancar to reference in this painting, this would definitely be the one. So I rate this as an educated guess. Next, we will turn our attention to the right arm. On the left side of the arm on the shoulder is a puzzling circular symbol. This is a tough one to identify, one of the few that lacks a really compelling explanation in my opinion. One possible explanation is that's a symbol for a bridge. There are several bridges around the area of the Outer Banks, and many people interpret the poem associated with this image to instruct the searcher to cross a bridge. But it's hard to really know for sure if that's the intended meaning, so this one is pure speculation. Another idea is that the symbol within the circle is the number 1. As you may know, the image is associated in the book with the month of January, the first month of the year, and it's also associated in the book with 1 o'clock. So the number 1 is a very logical guess, but ultimately it's just speculation. Another common guess for the meaning of this image is a baseball. If you just showed this part of the picture to a stranger, this is what most people would probably say it best resembles. The problem, though, is that it's hard to put together a compelling context for a baseball. Why would a baseball be on the knight's armor? For that reason, it's just pure speculation. Next, look at the structures that are holding up the arms. Here you can see a picture of the right arm and the supports underneath it, but there is a similar support structure on the left arm too. One theory is that it represents the railing found at the Overlook, which is a scenic viewing area at the end of the Harriot Trail, which is part of Fort Raleigh on Roanoke. This railing has changed a bit over the years, but in every picture I've seen, it does have the same T-shaped look as in the painting. Another idea is that the support structure is meant to resemble the Baum Bridge, which is the bridge connecting Roanoke with the Outer Banks. The T structure is such a hard one to place because there's so many structures that look this way, so this one also is pure speculation. Another idea is that these structures are meant to resemble the supports that make up the structure of the Wright brothers' flyer. This is entirely logical, but unfortunately there's just so little to go on here. One of my favorite explanations is that the structures are meant to resemble the scaffolding for the light towers used in the production of the Lost Colony play at the Waterside Theater on Roanoke. This black and white picture on the right side is from the Coastland Times from June of 1979, just a few years before Byron buried the cask. The scaffolding is quite impressive as it needed to withstand very high winds, so it would have been a very obvious detail to someone visiting the theater. Still, it's just speculative. The final detail I'll cover in this video are the strings hanging down from the arms. Why the strings here? In a later video, we will cover the items hanging from these strings. If you've never been to the Waterside Theater on Roanoke, then you may not have ever seen the microphones hanging from the ceiling during the production. Some may disagree with this one, but I think the hanging strings are a clear reference to these hanging microphones around the stage, so I'm giving this one a slam dunk. Thanks everyone for watching part 2 of this series. I hope you found this one as useful as the last one. Please like this video and follow me for part 3.